welcome to the Greg Tompsett Football Show. Tonight, we are going to whip around all of the games action in this NFL Week 6 slate, and we will start with none other than the Thursday night game between the San Francisco 49ers and the Seattle Seahawks. This was all 49ers to begin. The Seahawks came back and made it a little bit of a game. We had another dynamic kick return with Laviska Shenault taking one back. Maybe I saw somebody post that maybe he could have a Cordarrelle Patterson type resurgence, and I was like, oh, that's actually an interesting take. I think I could see that. Eventually, the Niners just kind of continued to stretch things out and took over. The Seahawks had nothing going early in this game and eventually put up some garbage time stats, but kind of, reestablishing some balance to the NFC West into where it was expected to go. So we'll assume that continues. This morning in London, it's always funny. This happened to the Bills last year. The Jaguars get to play a road game in London, and the Bears lose a home game and have to play the Jaguars. But this time, the Bears take it home, complete control of this game. The Caleb Williams, easily his best game of his career, 23 of 29, 226, and 4 touchdowns, 2 to Cole Kmet, 2 to Keenan Allen, had full control of this game throughout the entire matchup. And Gabe Davis ended up with some garbage time stats towards the end. Trevor Lawrence caught 2 Gabe Davis touchdowns to him and ended up setting up a halfway decent stat line that was completely hollow and had nothing deserved in that stat line. At the end of the game, Doug Peterson made some comments about how, there's something off with the energy around the locker room. I was like, oh, that's interesting. It certainly couldn't be Doug, but he's going to get to the bottom of it. Don't you guys worry. Bears look good here. Their defense looked good. I saw a stat that the NFC North is the first team in like 30 plus years where all the teams have 4+ wins after 6 weeks. Really, really tough division. Look good. The intro to the Drake Maye era started slow. It wasn't great. But eventually, put up some stats. He moved himself around, ran the ball here 5 times for 38 yards, ended up throwing 3 touchdowns, although 2 of them were real late, nasty ones. But the touchdown to Kayshon Boutte was a really nice deep ball, like dropped it right in the bucket directly to Boutte. Obviously looked better than Jacoby Brissett. But oddly, all of the positives that the special teams and the defense had going in the Brissett games all went out the window because the Texans just destroyed them in this game. Mixon ran for a touchdown. Dameon Pierce ran for a touchdown. Diggs and tanked out, and Mixon with another receiving touchdown. They were just completely dominant in this game. Texans 41, Pats 21, complete, disaster of a game. In what many people were looking at as the game of the day, I don't know if it was quite as close as the score indicated here. Final score was Baltimore 30, Washington 23. Baltimore was up 27-13 at one point. It was close for stretches, but Baltimore certainly looked like the better team throughout and was up by a score plus for most of the game here. And I think Washington, should feel good that they hung in this game, didn't let Baltimore get away from them, but obviously looks like they still have some ways to go to get themselves fully up to speed. And I'm going to put it out there. I think the Washington Commanders are a sneaky team to watch in this wide receiver trade market. Everybody's talking about the Jets and the Bills and the Chiefs. And I think Washington, you have a new owner. You have some found money with a 4-2 record. You have a very hollow top of that division. The Packer or the Cowboys and Eagles both look, pretty helpless and not like the traditional powers that they've been. I would watch Washington to be a sneaky team to go out there and make a trade. Again, Baltimore taking care of business, looking good. 2 Derrick Henry touchdowns. Zay Flowers looked really good in this game. Mark Andrews sighting. Mark Andrews caught a 13-yard touchdown. He does exist and is still out there catching footballs. Still looking like a tough team and somebody who's going to be heard from throughout the season. This game, again, similarly, not as close as the score indicated. Philadelphia beat Cleveland 20-16. The only touchdown on the day for the Cleveland Browns was Myles Garrett blocking a field goal and Rodney McLeod taking it back for a touchdown. I heard an amazing stat today. Rodney McLeod, who is a safety on their defense, leads the Cleveland Browns in touchdowns this season because he's scored more than one and no one else on their team has scored more than one. That's just delightful. That's just absolutely perfect to be able to see. I don't think that the Eagles played great today, but they did enough to win. They scored 20 points. I guess that'll do in this instance. But they were coming off a bye, playing a really crappy team in Cleveland at home. And Nick Sirianni was talking trash to fans in the stands, like, settle down. you were coming off a bye at home against Cleveland. You're supposed to win. Take a breath. In a game that I guess I was hoping would be a little more competitive than it was, the Packers really took it to the Cardinals. This is another game where, like, I think the Packers are better than the Cardinals, but the Packers defense isn't anything special, and the Cardinals got shut down. Like, just could not get much of anything going. Couple field goal drives, one early touchdown drive, and obviously you dig a 24-0 hole, and it's not really gonna come together. But Romeo Doubs, who was away for the team and being suspended, comes back, gets 2 touchdowns. Jaden Reed had a gorgeous one early. Christian Watson was open, so really nice stat line for Jordan Love, but really, it was about the Cardinals just could not get much of anything going. The least running game that they had in a while. James Conner could get nothing going. They 3.9 yards a carry, 23 carries for 89 yards is just not going to get it done. And everybody was running the ball for the Packers. So big team effort, 38 carries, but nobody had more than 18. So a whole lot of guys contributing there and being able to try to get this one back together. But the Packers looking good, up to 4-2. Cardinals fall to 2-4. In another game that many in the Cleveland area continue to monitor, Baker Mayfield. His team puts up 51 points and 4 touchdowns, 325 yards. This game actually was sneaky back and forth. You look at the box score here, it was 27-24. The Saints scored all 27 points in the second quarter, and then 27-0 Bucks in the second half. So really weird game. Buccaneers rattle off 17 unanswered. Then the Saints rattle off 20 unanswered. You do get a touchdown in between there for the Buccaneers, but again, all 27 points for the Saints in the second quarter. And then again, the Buccaneers rattle off 27 unanswered themselves. Just a weird game of runs. For Syracuse fans, you'll see Mr. Sean Tucker represented multiple times here. Had a rushing and receiving touchdown, so nice to see him in there. This was Spencer Rattler's debut. He was okay. One of the defensive scores was not on him. It was a big hit on Chris Olave. He went out with a concussion. Certainly monitor his availability moving forward. But he threw 2 interceptions, looked like a rookie, but I don't think looked like a disaster. Like, he was, had some opportunities, looked halfway decent in some spots. But obviously the Bucs continue to move forward, looking pretty good, 4-2, taking a strong stance to keep up with Atlanta in that division. Their game coming up in just a moment here. In a pretty ugly game, a late scratch of Anthony Richardson. It sounded like he was going to play, and then real late, maybe 15, 20 minutes before kickoff, they made the switch that he was going to be the emergency third quarterback. Flacco was going to start, and it was Joe Flacco versus Will Levis, back and forth. This was a back and forth game, not a terribly good game, but a back and forth game, and ended up with a late touchdown drive down the field and a jump ball that Michael Pittman went up and got from Joe Flacco. Multiple conversions to Josh Downs. Josh Downs looked really good in this game, 7 catches for 66 and a touchdown. Tony Pollard had a really nifty run. I think he scored his 23-yard run was on like a 3rd and 18. So 3rd and 18 from the 23-yard line, and he punched it in to score from there. So really nice run by him. But ultimately, Will Levis, again, can't find a way to get a W. Tennessee falls to 1-4, Indy at 3-3, and trying to keep their hopes alive here. In A game that also wasn't as close as this score indicates. The Chargers completely dominated this game, had complete control right from the beginning. Scored the first 23 points of the game. We're up 20-0 at halftime. I will say, shout out to the Broncos defense. They didn't let them just completely milk the clock the entire second half. They tried 38 carries for 128 yards, but 3.4 yards a carry. The Chargers could not just impose their will, even with a heavy lead in the second half. So the Broncos ended up with, all 16 of their points in the fourth quarter, but made a run at trying to get back into it. Had a couple attempts, actually, an onside kick and a chance to get back into this game, but ultimately the Chargers built a big enough lead that they held on. I don't know that either of these teams are as good as their 500 and above record show, but again, found a way to get a W for the Chargers coming off the bye, and the Broncos a lot more game team than I think many people anticipated. Again, a game that I think was closer than this score indicated. The Steelers win 32-13. The Raiders had so many opportunities here, some weird turnovers, multiple in the red zone, and just continued to give Pittsburgh a chance. J.J. Watt, 2 enormous punch-outs, looked really, had a huge impact on this game. He's a dominant player, and he made his presence felt in that situation. But Pittsburgh continues to find a way to win these games. They're now 4-2, and this one in the box score is going to look pretty good, even if they didn't maybe dominate quite as much as what this made it look like. They had 293 yards to 275, but again, 3 turnovers to none is going to do it, and they punched it in each time that they got those short fields and took advantage of it and continued to move their way. What Chris and I talked about on Thursday night is our game of the week was not. He pointed out that Dallas's defense was going to make it very susceptible here to the run, and the Lions certainly did that. 36 carries for 184 yards. Jared Goff looked amazing. 18-25 for 315 and 3 touchdowns. We were robbed of an absolute just pleasure of a play. The Detroit Lions ran a fat man hook and ladder. It was one of the prettiest things I've ever seen. It was a quick out or an in by Amon-Ra St. Brown, and they pulled. It was, Penny Sewell comes around and they pitched him the ball and he ran the ball in for a touchdown, and they had the absolute audacity to call an ineligible offensive lineman downfield. So not only did Penny Sewell not get credit for his unbelievably beautiful touchdown, but they called it back on another offensive lineman. It's just sad all around. The only thing prettier than that was watching the Cowboys get beat 47-9. Just a complete annihilation and embarrassment. Jerry Jones is being asked about firing coaches in the post-game interview, because of course as an owner he's getting interviewed after the game. That makes total sense. It's just a disaster of a game. Nothing looked good. Dak Prescott, 2 interceptions, no touchdowns. The Cowboys only scored 3 field goals on the day. Everyone on the Lions scored touchdowns. So just an absolute beautiful performance. One of the last 4:00 games here, and our last one before we get to the Sunday nighter, is Atlanta 38-20. Carolina hung in this game. Atlanta put a couple insurance scores in at the end, but they were hanging around in this game. They continued to make some plays. Xavier Legette scored and had an awesome horse riding celebration. He's a big horse guy down in South Carolina. Looked really good in this game. 2 Bijan Robinson touchdowns, a late Tyler Algier touchdown to salt it away. This was a game where Atlanta was a better team. They took control and stayed ahead, but maybe not quite as good as what the performance looked like on the scoreboard here, winning 38-20. They were a little bit closer than what that was. Tonight, we are now finishing up watching New York, Cincinnati. And pre-show, Chris and I were talking that maybe you should have been a little bit more prepared that the Giants were going to give the Bengals a tougher matchup here, but both of us expected more points to be scored, not 7-0. So a real snooze of a game, not terribly exciting to watch, but we'll finish it out here tonight. And for anybody who hasn't a chance to get ready for Bills Jets tomorrow night, we got a couple great shows. Aaron and I had Connor Rogers on, always a great, fantastic guest and friend of the show to break down Bills Jets. And earlier tonight, you saw David Tilton and Steve Mathis on with the Air Raid Hour game preview. Make sure you check both of those out. Get yourselves ready for Bills Jets, and we'll have some fun. So thank you guys for hanging out tonight. This was a lot of fun. We'll get us ready for Bills Jets tomorrow. Make sure to press that like button. It really goes a long ways to help us out as we're getting things rolling here. But on behalf of fantastic producer Chris Seth, I'm Greg Tompsett. You've been listening to the Greg Tompsett Football Show, and we are out.